It's a brand new day. I'm so glad you're here. I want to share a little story with you, but before we do that, it's time to do water because the sun is rising. It's a brand new day. So good morning. My name is Jill, and I wanted to record this while I am in the throes of an emotionally turbulent moment in time. Not because anything dramatic has happened out in the world. It's strictly the cause of it is what I've been doing with or without food for the last week. And I hit a crisis point last night, and I am super unstable right now. It's all I can do to not cry. And the reason why I'm recording this and it's important is, number one, I wanted to do it while I'm still crazy and very unstable. So those of you who can read energy, can feel the difference, I'm going to try to record the second part of this after I've figured out how to stabilize myself. Because what this is about is it's the practical application of ketosis and fasting in both famine and survival modes. And that means there is a lot of stress. It means there's a lot of turbulence, insecurity, uncertainty, high levels of adrenaline because you're in a sympathetic nervous system response. I'm having trouble thinking. And so it's very different than basically what I've been doing for the last week, which is nothing exciting. I've just been focused on, normal everyday life. So I wanted to really talk about this in a real way because what my work and my goal is to do with this primal human training isn't to create, this fantasy ego-based life. I'm really interested in these ideas as they pertain to our everyday life, but also, to be ready, like I want to keep saying, to get ready for anything, you have to train for everything. And the secret to that is to do it when you're in the calm and not the storm. So before I really talked about, my thoughts on how food will relate to us in a time of crisis or famine, I wanted to put myself through some paces. It hasn't gone well, but like I said, I wanted to do this first little chunk while I am emotionally holding on by my fingernails and trying to not cry. And all of that the only cause of all of that is the fact I didn't sleep last night because of what's going on within my body. And so there's two things that are going to be really important about understanding ourselves in this kind of depleted state and each other, is that one, if we're in a crisis situation and we have women, children, especially older people who are going to be more complicated. Hey. Is to understand that it's not to get angry at them, because a lot of these emotional feelings stem from a chemical imbalance within the body. And so being angry, frustrated, and telling people to suck it up is not the solution. But also, if we get into a situation where there's not enough food and we have to eat in a different way, I wanted to understand how to optimize that for myself, because one of my big belief systems is there's not a one-size formula that fits for all. And right now the internet is being flooded with information that is wildly conflicting. It's dangerous for some, and it isn't standardized because we just don't know. People are learning on the fly, and then they're promoting themselves as experts in both a state of ketosis I believe there's benefits and powerful components to both of those things, but we are in a very critical situation because it's very different to be doing it when there's no stress versus understanding your relationship to high stress. So this is just my first take after, it's really been 7 days I've been in the throes of this long 7 days. I started about 2 weeks ago with experimenting, but the last 7 days and the last, I was trying to go 3 days without food, but last night I had to have a little bit of peanut butter because something really bad happened and I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up. So we're going to take a break and I'm going to be back here on the other side. All right, this is part 2. I had a little bit to eat. I feel a little bit better, and the wind is going to be kicking up at any moment, and the sun just decided to get bright, but we're going to record part 2 because this is a really big topic. So I'm going to be making more than one video on this, but as I previously said, the purpose of everything I'm trying to do is how to get ready for anything by training for everything. But those same fundamentals are really at the core of what it means to be human in how to manage our stress now, but in addition to how to achieve a higher quality of life. And right now, you know, there's this huge rage about ketosis and autophagy and intermittent fasting. And so I have been looking at this for a while, and that's what I was doing as I was experimenting with the autophagy version of fasting and ketosis. And there's a lot of really positive health benefits. So the first thing I want to say about looking at how we use food, especially in a period of extreme stress or famine, is really going to be something important to know about yourself. And so this is just the introductory video, because what I learned over this course of the last 7 days, and especially 2 days, and I kind of hit a crisis point last night where it can be very dangerous and very manipulating your food, manipulating when you eat, what you eat, how you eat, without understanding what some of your underlying issues are. And so what I did is 7 days ago, I cut my carbs out and I ate in a short period, which I've been eating in a short period window, you know, morning till about 3 or 4 for over a year now, because I go to bed really early and I don't like to have a full stomach when I go to bed, and it's just me, so I get to do whatever I want. But so I've been doing that a while, so that wasn't a huge stretch for me. But cutting out all carbs, then till I got into a state of ketosis by checking on ketones. Then I went to no food for the last 48 hours, except for last night. I was in such a bad state, I had a little bit of peanut butter because I was just really nervous. Because I was been checking my blood sugars and my blood pressure, and my blood sugar was...
The blood glucose is 49 milligrams per deciliter.
Was below 50, which is actually really dangerous, and if it gets much lower than that. And you know, all this time I've been researching and looking information. It's like insulin is bad, insulin is evil, you know, everybody should be doing keto. Keto is the natural state. And that actually isn't true, because we don't know what the natural state of human is. And so I have a big complaint about the way a lot of this is going. But I think where I wanted to start with is the first thing is, one, how we eat, when we eat, and what we eat in today's world has nothing to do with what our ancestors did. And I was reminded of that when I was looking at some Weston Price information about what he did in terms of studying indigenous people, or pre-processed food, pre-industrial age food preparation. And it's just night and day. And then if you go back even further, and if you look at what plants were actually like, and what the plant-meat ratio was in, 10,000 years ago, the plants of 10,000 years ago don't have any resemblance to the plants today. They were more fibrous, they were bitter, they were more varied. I've seen estimates as high as 175 different kinds of plants were consumed over the course of a year. It was wildly different than anything we can recreate in today's world. So it's totally unrealistic to talk about paleo. I found these pictures. This is not how our ancestors ate. But so that's my first issue is we can't recreate what was. The second issue is our body is filled with all kinds of chemicals and toxins. The last count I heard was over 200, and that was a long time ago. But what happens was when your body starts to break down fat, it releases these toxins into your body. So you might be having all kinds of issues and problems unrelated to anything because your body's reacting to the hormones, the chemicals, the products that you've ingested or has come through your skin and having a negative reaction to that. And that is only relative to today's world. It has nothing to do with our ancestors. So that's the second thing. That's what can make this very dangerous. The third thing is we all have a very unique chemistry in our brain, in our body. What happened to us when our mothers were pregnant set up one set of circumstances. What happened to in the first 3 years when we were developing was another set of circumstances. Any kind of trauma, any kind of there's just so many things that go into how we are individually wired. And as I mentioned before, we've done a lot of our medical knowledge based on autopsies, and a lot of those autopsies were done on people of poor health. So there's just a lot we don't know. And one of the consistent themes I see is that people are declaring themselves all-knowing. And in 40 years of studying nutrition, every time a new fad comes into place, people rush to this singular idea saying this is the answer to everything. And so I've been at this long enough to understand and see the patterns. And here's so I think it's really important to step away from the patterns and to ask yourself what your primary goals are with food and with nutrition, and what your state of health is, and what are your goals to achieve. Which brings me back to why I has started this process, because what I'm most interested in, I'm interested in basic health, but when I eat my way, I actually have really good numbers. My resting blood sugar is good, my fasting morning blood sugar is good, it's good through the day, my blood pressure is good, my heart rate is good. So I don't have a lot of medical issues right now, but apparently I have issues around fasting and hypoglycemia, which is really bad. So that was a piece of information that was new for me, and so I have to further investigate that. But the point being is that if I hadn't done the testing and the practicing, I wouldn't be able to associate what's happening with how I feel with numbers. And that's important because we're all very unique. And so I could, last night, my resting blood sugar, I think, was 49.
The blood glucose is 49 milligrams per deciliter.
At night, right, in the evening, and I panicked because that's not good, because I hadn't eaten anything in a long time. And your body should naturally, even if you're not eating carbohydrates or not eating at all, your blood sugar should be between 70 and 100. Everybody has a different opinion about that. But, the bottom line is 70s or 80s on a fast is probably pretty good. If it's higher than that, you're probably still having a lot of insulin resistance. So, but 50 is bad. Below 50 is getting worse. So I was a little bit concerned. I took some salt, some sea salt twice, and it went up to 66 and then 71. And so
66 milligrams per deciliter.
Then I felt like, well, I can go to sleep. And part of why this is important is, I live alone. And so if I was to drop into some kind of hypoglycemic coma, the dog wouldn't know what to do. So it's really important to understand our own bodies. And but I couldn't sleep, and I normally sleep really well. It's not a problem unless there's wind or something. But I got hardly any sleep last night, and so I finally got up and just had some peanut butter because I was really nervous because I felt really bad, and I felt really bad this morning when I did part 1 of this video. I'm starting to feel slightly better, but my plan at this point is to now move into a much more normal eating pattern for me, because I'm also interested in ketones as fuel for the brain. So I'm trying to see if I can do this in a long-term status. So this video, while it's already run kind of long, is really the first one. But like I said, the key things is that, and you've seen from the headlines that I've been flashing through this video, is that we are at a point where the idea of a famine or a survival scenario is actually very real. I think that it's the kind of thing that it's important to take seriously, and we have this idea that we can store food and everything will be okay. And I think you just have to look at Venezuela and understand nothing can be further from the truth. So I believe in looking at this in a very practical way and a very safe way. And the most powerful way to do that is slowly gathering information about yourself so that you are going to be best equipped for any scenario. And you know, the benefit is that if you look at some of these processes, they have very powerful health benefits to them, but it has to be tailored to your individual body and mind and brain and lifestyle. And so I'm going to caveat with that one thing is that the last time I was under a very extended stressful period was when I initiated this whole trailer adventure, and for 2 weeks I couldn't eat anything. I think the only thing I ate maybe was some peanuts and some raisins and some salt. Unknowingly putting that potassium and salt combination in probably stabilized me a little bit, but I was running on pure adrenaline. So I was actually pretty functional when I was on pure adrenaline, but because I'm not under any stress right now and I put my body in a very stressed state, I wasn't running on that really strong adrenaline field and I fell apart. So this is a really important difference, and so I wanted to, like I said, I'm going to document this process as I go, or don't go. We'll see what the future holds. But this is something that's really important to know about ourselves. And so I'm going to be going into much more detail on the website with members, especially as we approach July. So I'm working on all this to come up with a protocol. But this is the first video. I just wanted to capture the real life moment of it because I don't want to do that again. That was really bad. I'm really tired, and I hope I get some sleep tonight because that totally sucked. So with that, we're going to take a deep breath, and I am going to see you next time. And links below.